Hello, how's everybody? Good to see you all. Really looking forward to seeing you all, your fresh, chirpy, bright faces. I hope you're very eager to listen to the story and keep sending me messages. I love them. Thank you so much for your support. And here we go. Today I've chosen stories, small extracts from stories which are about when a child has to migrate from, a youngster has to migrate from one place to another, and what experiences do they go through. So I thought you would find it very interesting because every child has their own perspective, their own experience, own observations, own likes and dislikes. Some like new places, adventures, some miss their friends, some miss the familiarity and the comfort. So let's see what happens here. Now the first extract that I'm going to read to you is my primary school in Africa. This has been written by Minda Majero. So let's see what she has to say. My first day at primary school was nothing like my dreams had been. It was January and I would be turning 6 that June, having spent 3 years in kindergarten, the third one, because I was not yet old enough to join primary school. I was rather excited about this new phase of life and learning. In those days, all kindergarten graduates were assigned to a class or grade called pre-primary, where we would earn the right and privilege to join Standard 1, which was first grade, a year later. My first memory of that day is the sublime pleasure of playing hopscotch in the mid-morning sun with perfect strangers from pre-primary. I was just beginning to bond with my playmates when I was suddenly whisked away and deposited in a noisy classroom overflowing with over 100 first graders. They were proud graduates of pre-primary. Teachers were assigning students to the 3 streams that made up first grade: red, yellow or blue. I'm sure you're all familiar with these colors. Some are divided according to sports groups, some are like this, whatever. And I glimpsed Dora, a family friend and a familiar face in the crowd, and hurried over to where she was, fervently hoping that we would be assigned to the same stream. Alas! When our names were called out, I was assigned to 1R and Dora to 1Y. Those were the sections. So they couldn't be together in the classrooms. Joy and laughter turned into bewilderment and sadness later that day as I came face to face with another group of perfect strangers. So you see, like, you want to know people because in school you want friends, you want to know people, otherwise you feel lost. You don't know the places, and you feel isolated, you feel lonely, right? Yeah, but for her, these were all perfect strangers because she had not gone through the pre-primary, whatever grades, with this group of people, or students or pupils, right? Okay, now these perfect strangers were my first grade classmates. They all knew each other, so that's what, oh my God, intimidated her from the years spent together in pre-primary, and I immediately became the outsider. So she is the outsider, nobody knows her, she doesn't know anyone. They have no similar experiences. Unlike the pre-primary crowd, the girls of 1R were vicious and unforgiving, kicking me in the shin and taunting me for I knew not what, while I stood there wondering what have I done. But Years later, it would dawn on me that maybe they resented the fact that I had skipped pre-primary and gone straight to first grade. Perhaps the fact that my mother was a teacher at that same school only exacerbated the situation. So, poor thing, things should have gone in her favor, but they went against her because they didn't like it, because she was a teacher's daughter. Throughout my tenure in primary school, my parents made sure that I was a year ahead of my class in learning, a practice that had resulted in my testing out of pre-primary and being placed in first grade. So sometimes when children are bright and they're performing very well, the parents get over-ambitious sometimes. But they have love and dreams for you. So this is what happened. They made her take the test and they said she was way ahead. Her knowledge was way ahead of pre-primary. So she was promoted to first grade. But the other children resented it and treated her as an outsider. So that created difficulties and hurdles for her. So this was my Minda Majero's experience. Now, you all must have heard of Nelson Mandela from his book. This extract is it's an autobiographical extract from his book, Long Walk to Freedom. All right, let's see what he has to write. From an early age, I spent most of my free time in the veld, largely unforested grassland in southern Africa. So largely unforested grassland in southern Africa is called veld, V-L-D, playing and fighting with the other boys of the village. A boy who remained at home tied to his mother's apron strings was regarded as a sissy, which is still the same, isn't it? They call them mama's boys, right? But it's not fair. At night, I shared my food and blanket with these same boys. I was no more than 5 when I became a herd boy, looking after sheep and calves in the fields. I discovered the almost mystical attachment that the Xhosa have for cattle, not only a source of food and wealth, but as a blessing from God and as a source of happiness. It was in the fields that I learned how to knock birds out of the sky with a slingshot, to gather wild honey and fruits and edible roots, to drink warm, sweet milk straight from the udder of a cow, to swim in the clear, cold streams, and to catch fish with twine and sharpened bits of wire. So he learned all the tricks of the trade, living in the countryside, in the fields, being a shepherd boy, a herd boy. So this is his experience. With children, he had to be macho and boy, and he learned all these interesting things. I learned to stick fight essential knowledge to any rural African boy and became adept at its various techniques, parrying blows, feinting in one direction and striking in another, feigning, breaking away from an opponent with quick footwork. Here they are, the boys, and they are playing with the sticks. Just like you do in hockey, right? From these days, I date my love of the fields, of open spaces, the simple beauties of nature, the clean line of the horizon. As boys, we were mostly left to our own devices. We played with toys we made ourselves. We molded animals and birds out of clay. We made ox-drawn sledges out of tree branches. Wow, how creative. Nature was our playground. The hills above Kunu were dotted with large smooth rocks, which we transformed into our own roller coaster. Wow! We sat on flat stones and slid down the face of the large rocks. We did this until our backsides were so sore we could hardly sit down. So imagine what rough but wild and creative games they made. They had no toys, they had no Legos, no. I learned to ride by sitting atop calves. After being thrown to the ground several times, one got the hang of it. I could actually imagine what was going on with those boys, can't you? Yeah, the sticks striking them, sliding down the rocks, my God, carving ox-drawn sledges out of branches, wow, and learning to ride calves. Whoa, okay. Now, there is another very interesting extract which I thought you would enjoy, really, if I can find it. There it is. Okay. Now, this is also about an experience of a young man, and it's also autobiographical, written by Laurie Lee, who in the late 1930s set out to walk from his home in England through France to Spain. In this passage, he describes parting from his home and family. Note how effectively he conveys his beautifully mixed feelings about this experience. The title is As I Walked Out One Midsummer Morning. Let's see. This is the picture. See how he's kind of silently bidding farewell to his home village. Fields, cottages, sun setting, sun rising. Okay, the stooping figure of my mother, waist deep in the grass and caught there like a piece of sheep's wool, was the last I saw of my country. Maybe you can spot her here in the picture. There she is. He describes her as like a piece of sheep's wool because he's walked far. Was the last I saw of my country home as I left it to discover the world. She stood old and bent at the top of the bank, silently watching me go, one gnarled red hand raised in farewell and blessing, not questioning why I went. At the bend of the road, I looked back again and saw the gold light die behind her. Then I turned the corner, past the village school, and closed that part of my life forever. How touching, isn't it? It was a bright Sunday morning in early June. Now, see, it kind of touches your heart and makes you a little sad as he's bidding farewell. But once he's on the road, it becomes sunny. It was a bright Sunday morning in early June, the right time to be leaving home. My 3 sisters and a brother had already gone before me. 2 other brothers had yet to make up their minds. They were still sleeping that morning, but my mother had got up early and cooked me a heavy breakfast. Mother's love had stood wordlessly while I ate it, her hand on my chair, and had then helped me pack my few belongings. There had been no fuss, no appeals, no attempts at advice or persuasion, only a long, searching look. Then, with my bags on my back, I had gone out into the early sunshine and climbed through the long, wet grass to the road. It was 1934. I was 19 years old, still soft at the edges, means that he had no worldly experience, no work experience. He was innocent, but with a confident belief in good fortune. I carried a small rolled up tent, a violin in a blanket, a change of clothes, a tin of biscuits, and some cheese. I was excited, vain, glorious. Yeah, I thought there would be good fortune waiting for me. Feeling glorious future was waiting for him. But real life can be different. but you can always achieve what you work hard for. Remember that always. Knowing I had far to go, but not as yet how far. Even he didn't know how far he would have to go. As I left home that morning and walked away from the sleeping village, it never occurred to me that others had done this before me. They must have felt the same. I was propelled, of course, by the traditional forces that had sent many generations along this road. They all had to go out, venture out, because there were not many jobs or opportunities to progress, to make money and live comfortably, to do well. So they all had to leave this valley. By the small tight valley closing in around one, stifling the breath with its mossy mouth, the cottage walls narrowing like the arms of an iron maiden, the local girls whispering, "Marry and settle down, marry and settle down." Of course, the girls wanted them to stay back and get married and settle down and be farmers. Well, but they all felt stifled because they wanted to venture out and explore the world and seek and explore what different new opportunities they could explore. Months of restless unease leading to this inevitable moment had been spent wandering about the hills, mournfully whistling. It's a sad thing because you're parting from your family and you don't know when you're going to be back. And you don't exactly know where you're going to be, and watching the high open fields stepping away eastwards under gigantic clouds. And now I was on my journey in a pair of thick boots and with a hazel stick in my hand. Naturally, I was going to London, which lay 100 miles to the east, and it seemed equally obvious that I should go on foot. But first, I had never yet seen the sea. I thought I would walk to the coast and find it. This would add another 100 miles to my journey, going by way of Southampton, but I had all the summer and all the time to spend. The first day alone, and now I was really alone at last, steadily declined in excitement and vigor. So his eagerness, his excitement kind of decreased. As I tramped through the dust towards the Wiltshire Downs, a growing reluctance weighed me down. Now he was feeling a little reluctant. Do you think you can associate with that? Hello, Farheen. Thank you for joining in. Okay. So reluctance weighed him down. White elder blossom and dog roses hung in the hedges, blank as unwritten paper, and the hot empty road, there were few motor cars, then reflected Sunday's waste and indifference. So actually everybody's lazy and slow, so there was not enough traffic on the roads either. Now, since he's feeling unhappy, he's feeling alone, he is unwilling to move further. So everything is kind of heavy and the time has slowed down for him. It's so relatable, isn't it? So now the summer, June was bright Sunday morning, and now he says, "Hi, sulky summer," sucked me towards it, and I offered no resistance at all. Through the solitary, lonely morning and afternoon, I found myself longing for some opposition or rescue, wanted somebody there, for the sound of hurrying footsteps coming after me and family voices calling me back. So he's missing all that, those familiar sounds, those familiar kind of arguments and discussions with friends and family. None came, and I was free. I was affronted by freedom. The day's silence says, "Go where you go will, it's all yours." And that's what I had wanted and dreamt. You asked for it. It's up to you now. You're on your own and nobody's going to stop you. As I walked, I was taunted by echoes of home, by the tinkling sounds of the kitchen, shafts of sun from the windows, all those familiar lights and shades and windows and pieces of the house falling across the familiar furniture, across the bedroom and the bed I had left, his comfort zone. When I judged it to be tea time, I sat on an old stone wall and opened my tin of biscuits. As I ate them, I could hear Mother banging the kettle on the hob and my brothers rattling the teacups, waiting for tea. The biscuits tasted sweetly of the honeyed squalor of home, still only a dozen miles away. He could still go back. I might have turned back then if it hadn't been for my brothers, but I could not have borne the look on their faces. What kind of they would have made fun of him. He would have felt humiliated. So I got off wall and went on my way. The long evening shadows pointed to folded villages, homing cows and after-church walkers. I tramped the edge of the road, watching my dusty feet, not stopping again for a couple of hours. And when darkness came, full of moths and beetles, I was too weary to put up the tent, so I lay myself down in the middle of a field and stared up at the brilliant stars. I was oppressed by the velvety emptiness of the world and the swathes of soft grass I lay on. Now even comforting, luxurious things don't seem very nice, very comforting, isn't it? Then the fumes of the night finally put me to sleep. My first night without a roof or bed. Imagine. I was woken soon after midnight by drizzling rain on my face. What a lovely feeling. The sky black and the stars all gone. 2 cows stood over me, windily sighing, and the wretchedness of that moment haunts me still. I crawled into a ditch and lay awake till dawn, soaking alone in that nameless field. Wow. But when the sun rose in the morning, the feeling of desolation was over. Birds sang and the grass steamed warmly. I got up, shook myself, ate a piece of cheese and turned again to the south. Good luck to him. How beautifully Laurie Lee has described, isn't it? I was really marveling at it. I was really fascinated. So I hope you guys also enjoyed listening to these extracts from different people. The 19-year-old leaving his home, the 6-year-old moving to a new school, and the 5-year-old learning to be a herd boy. I hope you enjoyed them, and thank you for your messages. Send me as many as you want with your suggestions and ideas or any favorite stories you would like to suggest and you would like to listen to be read to you. Lovely to see you. Have a nice week. Bye-bye. Thank you.